Jonathan, I want to start with like this little mini bone of contention between Farzana and me. SEO, search engine optimization, is now evolving into either AEO, answer engine optimization, or GEO, generative engine
hmm
optimization. In my world, see AEO is dominating, but when Farzana searches on Google, for what it's worth, GEO comes up as by far and away the number one term that people. Which term are we using, and does it matter? And blah blah blah.
Great question. Well, I'm probably not going to make either of you happy because I don't think the term really matters. I really believe that when we're talking the average business person out there that cares about how do they rank on search engines, how do they rank with AI models, that it's still search engine optimization. One thing that in my mind hasn't changed from day one of search, and again, I'm far older than Farzana, so I can certainly remember back to the early days of the internet when we had things like Ask Jeeves and Alta Vista. When Google started, it was really simple to give us the most accurate and relevant results to our search query. That's still what everybody's trying to do. It's just that game has changed because now we're using things like ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude and other tools instead of using Google. In fact, I don't remember the last time I actually used Google to do a search.
Do you know that's so true? But why should PR professionals care about SEO and AEO? And do you see them running just in parallel as just separate sort of channel approaches from a PR lens? Or do you see that AEO is likely to make traditional SEO obsolete? Gaze into the future for us, Jonathan.
I think from a PR perspective, AEO or answer engine optimization is really where the game is moving, so to speak. And the reason I believe that is that search engine optimization to most people implies keywords. Am I going to be the best chiropractor in Tallahassee, Florida, or wherever that we want to search? And answer engine optimization, which is really where Google's pushing, where they're trying to get us to, and again, where I think the AI engines are going, is based on, are you an expert in your niche? And when it comes to PR, we're either trying to deal with a problem or we're trying to demonstrate that our client is indeed an expert in their niche. And based upon that, I really believe that it's answering questions. Marcus Sheridan wrote a great book about this called They Ask You Answer. And while it wasn't a PR book per se, I think it really fits because our audiences are looking for answers to their questions. And if through our PR work, we can make sure that we're helping our clients provide those answers to their audience, then naturally they're going to rank well and they're going to have positive impact from what we're doing.
Jonathan, what's going to happen to Google then? I mean, I've stopped Googling. I mean, I'm just, ChatGPT is like the third person in our marriage. I ask ChatGPT everything.
I do
And
too.
I just don't use Google anymore. And I've tried to use it and they've got this AI search in the beginning, and the results, but it's just, I don't know, it's just not is intuitive and easy to use as say ChatGPT. And I've got these little voice note things that I do on the app, and it's just become like a part of my life. So what's going to happen to Google?
Well, the good news is that despite my fears, Google actually is becoming a powerhouse on the AI side. Now, the interesting move, and I don't know how deep we want to get into this, is, Google Ads is the cash cow that has made Google what it is. I mean, Google does a lot of things, but it's Google Ads platform that has made it the billions and billions of dollars that it has. That is going to be changing, and they're actively trying to figure out how do they effectively monetize that now in an AI world. So, their AI tools are fantastic, and I think that's going to change where some of that revenue comes from. But again, I also think it's getting more and more difficult because of the fact that it's not just based on keywords anymore. We've learned that, through various filings that Google actually wasn't reading most of our content anyway, despite what we thought. They were actually, they were looking at how people interacted with it and things like that. And so when you pull all of that together, I think that search in Google will probably never be the same. Google was synonymous with search up until, well, even say now, today, but I don't believe moving forward that Google will be synonymous with search any longer.
How interesting. So from this episode, we'll produce a transcript then we'll upload the transcript to a web page. And it's publicly
Yep.
available and scrollable. You don't expect the public to read the transcript. Sometimes they do. But that's always been an SEO strategy, right? Hoping
Correct.
that Google's... Are you telling me that, A, Google hasn't been reading that anyway, that the keywords that are in the transcript are becoming less and less and less important? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, let me be very clear. I am not the expert at SEO, so I'm basing it on things that I've read.
Yeah.
But the U.S. Justice Department a year or two ago had a lot of things come out in discovery with Google. And one of the things that I read that came out of that was that, we thought Google was reading all of our content. They're only reading a small portion of that content. A lot of that content is actually being summarized by, guess what?
AI.
AI.
Yeah.
And then AI is essentially scanning that content to determine, is it relevant? Is it not relevant? Our AI engines are getting better in that process. But the key to me is, going back to that original question, it's really about the answers that we're providing. Because if I'm a chiropractor in Jacksonville, Florida, or Tallahassee, Florida, instead of worrying about whether I rank for that word, now I know that Google and the AI engines are going to go, okay, what do you talk about related to AI, or I'm sorry, to chiropractic? Have you demonstrated, and this is a Google thing, expertise, experience, authority, and trust, that EEAT that Google's been talking about for the last few years? That is becoming much more relevant because it's not about keywords any longer.
So it went from SEO to sentiment-based analysis, right? The whole keyword thing really is, in most algorithms, that's 7-10 years old, that concept.
Correct.
It's evolved. Does that mean sentiment analysis is now evolving into what questions did you answer and what authority do you display?
I believe so. That's my opinion, yes.
But
And
Jonathan,
again, think about it from a consumer's perspective. If I've got questions, I want answers. I'm going to Google, I'm going to ChatGPT, not to get whatever, but I'm going to get answers. And so if I can find people and businesses that are answering my questions, innately those businesses and individuals, those brands, are going to have improved credibility with me because they've demonstrated that expertise, they've demonstrated that experience, hopefully that authority, and in a good world, or the perfect world, trust from their customers along with that.
I was thinking about really positioning our clients as experts. Now, I've noticed a lot of sort of ChatGPT generated content flying around on my LinkedIn feeds. And I know some of the people who are sort of posting them. And I know they don't have that insight and they don't write, like that. And so are we going to be in a position where everyone and their grandmother is now a thought leader and they are churning out this thought leadership content, but then there's a total disconnect between the expertise that they are sort of optically putting out and then the reality? And how are consumers going to be able to navigate that difference? Because now actually I can write a blog on PR, having studied and done the qualifications and the experience and the obsession that I have with PR. And someone, an intern coming into the industry, could just knock up something using ChatGPT with some very good prompts. And then maybe you couldn't see the difference, or God forbid, their one's better than mine. So, I mean, how is that world going to look like with, expertise at the fingertips of anybody, a non-expert?
Well, I think it's an excellent question, but I think that's where the experience and the authoritativeness part of the model come through. It is going to be very difficult for that intern to demonstrate experience. And they may be able to write a good article. They may be able to write 2 or 3 good articles. They're not going to be able to write 100 good articles because they're simply not going to be able to prompt it well enough. They're not going to have the experience to know the minutia to be able to take one concept and turn it into 4 articles. That's not what they're going to be capable of. And so experience is still going to win out in the long run. What it is changing in my mind is the volume of content that people with experience need to put out. 2 years ago, if you wrote a blog post once a week or once a month, you were at the top of your game because nobody else was doing that, or very few. Now, you better be putting out a video probably on a daily basis if you're an expert. And you
Wow.
probably need to, at a minimum, be writing blog posts at least weekly. But here's the good news. You as an expert with experience, so you actually have both of those. Now, imagine how much better AI can make you. Let's just say AI is a 3x multiplier. If I'm a 2 as an intern and I have just a little bit of experience, it's going to make me a 6. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're a 7 because you've had some experience in doing that, yeah, that 6 and 7, all of a sudden we seem really good. And maybe if that intern's a 3 or a 4, that, oh my goodness, now it's a 12 to my 7.
Mm-hmm.
But if I amplify my skill and authority, my 7 times 3, now I'm a 21. So I'm still way ahead of where that intern could be because I have more skill and I have more experience. There's a big thing going around right now, and it's in PR circles and everywhere else, and it's that consumers don't want AI content. I call BS on that.
Mm.
And here's
They, yeah.
why. People don't want bad content. People want helpful content. If the content you read is helpful to you and it answers your question, going back again right to where we started, you're not going to look at it and go, well, that answered my question, but I think it was written with AI, so I don't like it. No, that's not how we do things. On the other hand, when we look at content and we go, well, that was junk. And then we go, oh, it was AI. Then in our minds, we go, oh, I don't like AI content, when that's not the reality. The reality is I don't like unhelpful content.
So this pulls on where I kind of think the functionality of a lot of junior and mid-level PR roles are going. How
Mm-hmm.
well we prompt the AI, then how well we recraft what the AI originally produces. So, and I'm not
Correct.
saying there won't be great writers. There will be people who write so darn
Absolutely.
right and they don't need AI and blah, blah, blah. But for the vast 99% of us, it's how well we prompt the AI and how well we shape it on the other side. Any ideas on especially that prompting part? How do we become the best prompt engineer we can be? Is it simply to tell the AI, answer a lot of different common questions within this? And do I have to use different, not just ChatGPT, but should I be using Gemini and Claude and Perplexity and all of them to craft one blog?
So I think it's a slightly more complex answer, if I may. It is not just prompting. I'm huge into prompting, and I believe in how we communicate is radically important into what happens when we get out of it. So yes, that's relevant. But even more important than that is our human interaction. So many people are going in and they're going, well, you know what? I know a little bit about chiropractic, so I want to write an article about, sports chiropractic and this aspect of it. And so they do, but then they don't know whether it's actually true or not. They don't know how accurate it is. And so when they get done with it, they're like, well, yeah, that looks good, and I'll publish it. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. As an expert, what we need to do is we need to be training the AI on who we are. And ironically, it's less about prompting from a programmatic perspective. In other words, we don't need to think like programmers. We need to communicate, Doug, as though you and I were collaborating on a project. So, or if you and Farzana and I were collaborating on a project, we're going to what? We're going to sit down, we're going to have a meeting. We're going to then communicate. We're going to share things. We're going to go back and forth. We're not going to go, let's say you're going to write a press release for me, Doug. I'm not going to walk into your office and go, hey, Doug, I need a press release. I need it on Monday, and turn around and walk away. Because you're going to go, Jonathan, no problem, but hang on, I got some questions. And, oh, no problem. I'm then going to answer the questions you've got. That's the part that we so often miss with AI. We go, I need a press release and I need it by Monday. And then we press go. And ChatGPT or whatever engine we're using tries to fill in some blanks. Maybe we gave it a little context, but it's not very good context because we're treating it like a slot machine where we want to pull that lever and we want the perfect response back out of it. That's not how it happens. It's no different than, Doug, you could probably write a press release that absolutely what I was wanted after we'd worked together for a year or two because you'd know me that well. But the first interaction, it's not going to work that way. And so it's the same thing with AI. As an expert, you need to work with AI. You need to let it know who you are. You need to give it information about you. And you need to go back and forth. It is a collaborative experience. not a slot machine experience.
That sounds so very human, doesn't it? The serve and return mechanism to communication.
It's been built on, we call them large language models for a reason. They're built on language, and that's why we talk about natural language processing. The best results that I get out of AI are when I do the transcript feature on my computer. And so on my computer, I press my control key twice, it turns on my mic. And wherever my cursor is, it takes whatever I say and turns it into text. When that's how I communicate with AI, I get results that far outpace anything I type or even the voice mode that I use, because I'm using natural language and I'm often then giving much more context as well. Those two things together make all the difference in the world.
Wow. It's like, in a way, being a good manager of, an employee
so
versus
good.
a
Yeah.
bad manager. Like, it's like saying, like, not giving them enough context, and
Precisely.
and then also when we do manage people, it's not like you accept the first draft. You're always like, okay, right, go back to it, go back and do the second draft and the third draft. And I think we do have this slightly naive approach to ChatGPT and others, where it's almost like this magic genie. Just give it a single prompt and then, magic will happen. And
the
so we
lever.
don't, yeah, exactly. It's like a slot machine. And actually the way we should be looking at it is the way that we perhaps manage a junior is we give them the context, we understand that they need to understand and grasp certain insights in order for them to create the first draft. And when they bring it back, just like you would with a colleague, to go back and forth and and discuss it. That's a really interesting, and I think maybe we should look at it like a human as opposed to looking at it like a slot machine. That it needs that.
Can
And
I give
guess,
it a name? Would that help?
If that makes you feel better. I don't think the AI cares one way or the other, but again,
Yeah.
much like just like you're talking, Farzana, when I bring a new intern in or a new person on my team, I don't trust that they know everything about my organization or that they know everything about me. I have to teach them that. I have to give them information. So I give them our annual report to review. I give them proposals that we've done. I give them copies of our marketing material. Maybe I even have them listen to some Zoom staff meetings that they missed so that they can get a feel for what is our organization like. Then they're far more capable of creating content that's relevant both to our organization and our audience. That's the part I fear that too many of us, we fail at with AI. Or we give it a little bit and it comes back, as you were saying, Farzana, maybe it gets us 80 to 90% of the way there, but it doesn't get us all the way there. And then we're like, well, that AI stuff, that just stinks. Well, no, because if it was a coworker, we'd go, wow, this is really good start. This is solid. But here, this section we need to take a look at, and let's flush this out a little bit over here. That's what we do. We go back and forth. And we don't tend to do that with AI. We tend to take what it gives us and then we read it and we judge it based upon what we have right there, as opposed to treating it as an iterative, collaborative process like we would with an intern, a really smart, really fast intern, but that still needs direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Last question, Jonathan. Any AI tools that you think PR people tuning in should start looking at and playing around with, particularly for SEO and AEO? I know AEO is more your thing.
Yeah. If you're not looking at some of the new agentic software that's being released, you really need to start using that. Tools like Manus, Manus. There are other tools like GenSpark, GEN Spark. And then, of course, ChatGPT has now released its own version. Perplexity's kind of released its own version. Those are all tools that you need to be looking at, because the big difference is that agentic AI, actually, we can now give an objective. It will develop a task list for that, and it will then proceed down to execute multiple tasks in order to achieve an objective, as opposed to standard AI, which is still very helpful, but where we basically have to prompt it, give me the outline. Now, break down each section. Now, write each section. Agentic AI will go through that entire process and will take just as long, except that you won't have to be directing it. So that means that you can say, I want to write this press release and I want to do the following and I want it to be for this audience. And here's your background information. And you can press go and go get your coffee refilled and come back, because it may take it 3 minutes, but it will go through 17 steps to get there, just like you would normally prompt AI or tell an intern, here's our process, here's our standard operating procedure to write a high quality press release, a high quality blog post, a high quality whatever. There's a process that gets followed. And the beauty with agentic AI is that it can do more things at one time. And it also tends to be better at using the memory or the training we've given it, because it's not looking at just one task. So it has a better perspective. No different than if we wanted to write, imagine you wanted to write a blog post and it had 4 sections to it, and you gave it to 4 different writers to each write a section. And then you told another writer who had not read the other 4 sections to write the introduction and the conclusion. Well, that post would come out really bad because there would be no coherence. And to an extent, that's what happens with basic AI if we're not prompting it right, because it doesn't keep the context. Versus agentic AI, it knows that whole picture, and as a result, creates better content and better results for us. Manus,
has a
MANUS. ChatGPT recently released theirs called Agent, and it's good. It's fairly limited, but it is good. Claude has just released some of their own stuff. Perplexity, which is my favorite AI search engine, by the way, instead of Google.
Okay.
They have released one called Perplexity Labs, and that does a lot of same type of thing. You can give it an objective, and it will then develop the tasks and create that. And even to the point now that they're interfacing with other applications on our computers. So I used one, a perfect example the other day. I just signed on to do a series of 9 events with a organization over the next year. They sent me a number of emails the next day. Here's all the events. Here's all the locations. Here's everything. Normally, I would have just went to my admin and said, accept them all, put them on my calendar. And then, by the way, can you put together a table just because I want a single sheet to look at? And I thought, well, instead of doing that, I'm actually going to use my new Perplexity browser called Comet, which has Perplexity's agent built into it. It's just connected to my Gmail. It's connected to my calendar. And I said, I got a lot of emails yesterday from Vanessa about a series of events. I didn't tell her her last name. I didn't say what company. I said, I want you to go through. I want you to accept all of those and put them in my calendar. And then for Romay and Beth, Romay's my ops person, Beth's my wife, I needed you to create a table of all the events. I want you to list the location. I want you to list the dates and all this information. The same thing I really would have expected my admin to do. Except at this point, I just told it literally what I told you. It has a connection to my email. It came back, it identified, it said, oh, here's the emails from Vanessa. It's the only Vanessa you got multiple emails from yesterday. We went through and figured this out. You said Romay was your ops person, so I'm assuming she has a Whitebeard Strategies email address. I looked in your email, by the way, I didn't know who Romay was, and said, but I did find a Romay email address at Whitebeard Strategies, so I'm assuming this is the right person. Yep. And you mentioned Beth. I see a couple Beths, but only one has the same last name, so I'm assuming this is the right email for your wife. Yes, it is. By the way, here's the email that I've written to send to them about all the events, telling them why Jonathan's doing it. I mean, and it was fantastic, and it was done in a minute and a half. I couldn't have explained to my admin what to do in that minute and a half.
David,
Wow.
I think you're living in like another decade from me.
Oh my God. And what does agentic even mean? Like agent?
The agent is really where they're going. It's the problem with AI in general right now is that everybody has their own definition for different terms. We talk about AGI or artificial general intelligence, yet we haven't defined as an industry what it's actually going to mean. That's why people are talking about, oh, we're going to be there in 2025. We'll be there 2026. Others, oh, it'll be 2030. Some people go, we're never going to get there. It's because we're all shooting at a different end goal because we have different definitions.
Okay, so these agents are going to impact customer service positions because you'll have AI generated responses that work, administration positions. They just are, and I know that's a shame.
Without a doubt, they will.
Okay, so then part of the learn to evolve, learn to adapt is don't go down that path because you're destined to be replaced.
Well, I more than that, I think it is we're still going to need great admins. We're still going to need great customer service people, but we're going to use customer service people that understand how to use the tools. When I was getting into the workforce, I'm going to date myself, but not a big deal. I've got the white beard. I can do that. PCs were just starting to show up on desks in offices. They were still typewriters and adding machines and abacuses, as I called them. Never saw an abacus on a desk. But anyway, it was old and antiquated. And there were people that said at that time, I'm not going to use that computer to write a letter. I've got a typewriter. And for a year or two, that worked. But let's fast forward now 35 years. There's very few typewriters in any offices anymore. Now, there may be one because for that rare government form that needs to be typewritten, but there's one in the entire building now, probably in a storage closet for that occasional form, as opposed to one on every desk. Those individuals didn't necessarily lose their jobs. They adapted. And I think we're going to see the same thing right now. That customer service person that says, I'm not going to use AI, they will end up being displaced at some point in the not too distant future. But that customer service person that says, wow, if I can learn how to leverage AI and my experience, Farzana, going back to what we were talking about, that leveraging that experience, that customer support person is going to earn more money because they're going to have more capabilities and be able to bring more value to their organization they work for. 100%.
Yep. Pop. Truth bomb. Jonathan, thanks for your time today.
Absolutely.